After nearly 4 decades of separation, an unlikely and emotional reunion was about to take place. An elephant named Charlie was going to meet the man who had raised him when he was just a young elephant. A memory that barely touched the wildest dreams of another time. Ryan Carter held tightly in his hands an old photo. A young elephant with soft, piercing eyes frozen in the past. These memories belonged to another era, another world. At 63, Ryan was returning to Africa, to a place he hadn't visited in almost 40 years. In his 20s, he had devoted his time to wildlife, particularly taking care of orphaned elephants at the Greenfield Sanctuary. Charlie, this lively little elephant, had been his inseparable companion, a faithful friend, always ready to follow him, play, and discover the world. But life had separated them. Charlie had been moved to another reserve, and Ryan was left in uncertainty, wondering what had become of him. Years passed, and one day Ryan heard about an elephant that matched Charlie's description. The idea that he might truly find his old friend never left him. He had to see it with his own eyes. Upon arriving at the sanctuary, Ryan was greeted by Emma, a young ranger. She introduced herself as the daughter of Max, his former colleague. A smile lit up her face as soon as she recognized Ryan. "My father often spoke of you and Charlie," she said. "You were inseparable." Together they walked through the reserve, and Ryan showed her the photo of Charlie. He remembered the days spent playing hide-and-seek, with Charlie following him like a puppy, always by his side. But a hint of hesitation flashed in Emma's eyes. "It's been a long time, Ryan," she said gently. "Elephants have exceptional memory, but nearly 40 years is an eternity." Yet Ryan couldn't bring himself to give up. He remembered the powerful bond he had shared with Charlie, his mischievous gaze, the way he reacted to his voice. It couldn't have been erased. As they neared the main area, Emma explained that Charlie had been seen in the reserve a year earlier. He was one of the oldest elephants, and some believed he recognized certain places, but never a human like Ryan hoped. "I need to see him," Ryan whispered. "Even if he doesn't remember me, I need to know he's okay." As they walked along the familiar paths, Ryan relived memories from another time. The reserve had expanded, now accessible to visitors, researchers, and schools, but some remnants of the past were still there. Each step in this familiar place revived images of a young Charlie, playful, sneaky, stealing bananas from the kitchen. He relived the time when the elephant was just an innocent child, and he, an idealistic young man. The emotion intensified when he reunited with Max, his old friend, who had returned specially to see him. They embraced, sharing memories of the reserve, the years that had passed. But despite the joy of the reunion, a lingering anxiety sat in Ryan's heart. Charlie had changed. "I'm not going to lie to you," Max said in a grave voice. "Charlie is different. He's wiser, more distant. The years have transformed him." The next day, visitors could observe the elephants in the wild. Ryan waited, his heart pounding. When the elephants emerged onto the plains, he scanned the animals with anticipation, hoping to catch a glimpse of Charlie. And suddenly he saw him, a majestic elephant, older but still imposing, his long, curved tusks, his skin marked by time, but a familiar grace in his movements. Ryan felt his breath catch. Was it him? The elephant stopped, raised his head, scanning the crowd. Then suddenly his eyes locked on Ryan. A spark of hope ignited in Ryan's heart. Was it really Charlie? Time seemed to stand still. He could barely breathe. It might have been recognition, or just a coincidence. Emma turned to him, whispering, "Do you think he knows who you are?" Ryan swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the elephant. "I don't know, but I have to try." Cautiously, he stepped forward. Each step felt like an eternity. The noise of the crowd faded, leaving only the rustle of dry grass. Charlie remained still, his ears slightly twitching. Ryan slowly raised his hand, the familiar gesture. Charlie's trunk twitched, then lowered toward Ryan, gently brushing him. A deep emotion flooded over Ryan. It might have been the memory of a long-buried bond. Perhaps Charlie remembered. The rangers and visitors watched, transfixed. An almost sacred silence. And then, a deep rumble escaped Charlie, resonating in Ryan's soul. "Charlie," he murmured, overwhelmed by emotion. I've never seen an elephant react like that, Emma whispered, amazed. Ryan, unable to speak, simply nodded. Deep down, he knew that, even though time had passed, something remained intact in Charlie's heart. The memories might not be clear, but somewhere, in a little shelf in the elephant's heart, he hadn't forgotten. The rangers watched closely. He trusts you, Max murmured, but he's not the same. The wildlife changes beings. Ryan took a deep breath. I know, and I don't want to force anything. I just wanted to know if he remembered me. And I think that, yes. He gently touched Charlie's trunk. I never forgot you, my friend. But suddenly Charlie stopped, his head raised, his ears spread out. A young elephant approached, challenging Charlie with a gaze. Tension rose instantly. We need to step back, Ryan, said Max. Let him handle this. Ryan stood still, watching. Charlie immediately stepped in, lifting his head, challenging the other elephant. A powerful trumpet echoed across the plain, and the young male hesitated before retreating. Charlie remained still for a moment, then turned toward Ryan. He wasn't the same, but he was still there, still protective, still loyal. Ryan took a deep breath. Thank you, old companion. Charlie let out a final gentle rumble before slowly turning away, disappearing into the savannah. Ryan stood there gazing at the horizon. The sun was setting, and he knew this wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning of a new adventure. An adventure that, he hoped, would bring him even closer to his old friend, despite the time and distance. The next morning, Ryan returned to the place of their meeting. In his hands, an old bell, an object once used to attract Charlie's attention. He rang the bell. The clear sound resonated across the vast plain. Minutes stretched on. Then in the distance, a rustle. Charlie emerged slowly, his gaze fixed on Ryan. He stopped, hesitant, his ears raised. Ryan rang the bell again. Charlie twitched. And this time, slowly, he advanced, step by step. A meeting full of emotion. Could the bond they had shared be reborn? Ryan extended his hand. Charlie hesitated for a moment, then, with infinite slowness, brought his trunk closer. Perhaps, deep down, he remembered after all.